It's 2:47 a.m. A single light glows in a dark gym. The sound of sneakers on hardwood. A man drenched in sweat shoots the ball again and again. Kobe Bryant's voice cuts through the silence. Rest at the end, not in the middle. He's not playing for a crowd. He's not chasing applause. He's at war with the version of himself that said, "I'll do it tomorrow." Now pause that image for a second, because outside that gym, in millions of bedrooms, there's another man staring at his phone, watching that same quote, feeling the same fire. He swears tomorrow will be different. He feels the power in his chest. But when the sun rises, it's gone. Why does the fire feel real at night and die by morning? Why does motivation vanish the moment reality starts talking back? Stay with me till the end, because once you understand why that happens, you'll never waste another night believing in a version of yourself that disappears with daylight. It's midnight again. The city outside has gone quiet, but your mind hasn't. The light from your phone screen paints the ceiling. Your thoughts race like you're standing on the edge of something big. You start planning. Tomorrow you'll wake up early. You'll fix everything you've been avoiding. You'll become the version of yourself that finally gets it right. At that moment, it feels possible. The night has this strange honesty to it. No one's texting, no meetings, no noise, just you and that silent conviction that you were built for more. Kobe Bryant used to talk about that hour. For him, it wasn't 12 a.m., it was 4 a.m., the time when most people are deep in sleep and he's already sweating through his second workout. He said that's where separation happens. Not during the game, but when nobody's watching. The idea sounds romantic until you realize what it costs. His social life, his sleep, sometimes his peace. But that's the trade-off between feeling motivated and being devoted. You've probably had your own 4 a.m. moments. Maybe you're not holding a basketball. Maybe it's a notebook, a business plan, a mirror. The pattern's the same. Night gives you clarity. You see your goals clearly. You even feel love for them. You make promises. Tomorrow I start fresh. You believe it. And for a few hours you feel like a man reborn. Here's the thing most people never notice. At night, your world shrinks. You're not surrounded by obligations or other people's expectations. You're standing in a kind of mental vacuum, and in that silence, your confidence grows loud. That's why ideas come so easily. There's nothing fighting them. But the morning? Morning brings gravity. The weight of tasks, notifications, responsibilities. That silence you mistook for strength was really isolation. And this is where most men get stuck. We mistake emotional clarity for commitment. We confuse the high of awareness with the grind of transformation. We think because we've thought about change deeply, we've somehow earned it. But thought isn't currency. Action is. Look at how Kobe used that energy. He didn't romanticize it. He structured it. The man turned obsession into a schedule. He made discipline his religion. The rest of us tend to light that same match and just stare at the flame until it burns out. When you feel that late-night surge, it's not weakness, it's insight trying to surface. But insight without embodiment becomes guilt. You start noticing the gap between who you are in the dark and who you are in daylight. That gap breeds shame, and shame quietly kills momentum. So why do you feel most alive when the world's asleep? Because night lets you pretend there's still unlimited time. There's no clock reminding you of the cost of inaction. The future feels open, clean. You're not tired of yourself yet. Here's what most men want, I'd admit. We chase that night version of ourselves because he has pure potential. He hasn't failed yet. He hasn't been tested by alarms, traffic, or fatigue. He's a fantasy of competence, and fantasies are easier to maintain in silence. But when the sun rises, reality demands receipts. That's when the work begins, and most of us don't have systems, just emotions. We rely on inspiration like it's fuel, but inspiration burns fast. What keeps engines running is rhythm. Kobe had rhythm, not motivation. Rhythm. It's the difference between fire and furnace. A furnace can hold fire. It can channel it. Most men never build that structure. We keep lighting matches, watching them flare, then wondering why the room stays cold. You don't need more motivation. You need a container for it. You need a plan that can survive moods, a routine that outlasts adrenaline. The night shows you who you could be. The morning proves whether you actually mean it. So next time that spark hits at midnight, don't waste it on fantasies or declarations. Translate it. Write one task down, something physical, measurable, boring even. Place it where you'll see it at sunrise. Turn the idea into a trigger. Because the fire at midnight is a message, not a miracle. It's telling you what matters. Your job is to answer it when the light comes back. That's what separates the dreamer from the disciplined. The dreamer talks to himself in the dark. The disciplined one listens in the dark and responds in the daylight. You ever notice how a promise made at night feels like a lie by sunrise? You wake up heavy, your brain fogged, and the same goals that felt electric just hours ago now seem distant, even stupid. You tell yourself you just need coffee, a better playlist, maybe 5 more minutes in bed. But deep down, you know what happened. The version of you that swore to change last night didn't survive the daylight. Here's what's really going on. At night, you're free from judgment, comparison, and expectation. You're not dealing with people, deadlines, or performance. You're living in the echo of your own potential. That's why the mind opens up. Dopamine dips, cortisol drops, and your brain slides into a state psychologists call hypnagogic clarity. It's that soft zone between fatigue and focus where your thoughts finally stop fighting each other. You can finally hear yourself think. But that mental silence is deceptive. Because when you imagine a better version of yourself, your brain doesn't really know the difference between imagining and doing. The same reward chemicals fire whether you visualize a workout or actually go do it. You get a free hit of dopamine, the same chemical that makes real progress feel good, but with none of the consequences. So by the time morning comes, your brain has already rewarded you for the fantasy. It thinks you've already won. That's why you wake up feeling flat. You don't need more motivation. You've already spent it. It's a cruel trick, your brain's way of protecting your ego from failure. You fantasize about being disciplined because it feels safer than actually risking disappointment. You dream about the new version of you, but never let him face the test of the day. This is why so many men stay trapped in cycles of almost. We live 2 lives, the one we plan at night and the one we settle for in the morning. The gap between them is the source of our quiet frustration. Morning doesn't kill motivation, reality does. As soon as the world intrudes, the phone, the noise, the demands, the fragile confidence you built overnight shatters. The clarity you had in the dark was only possible because you were alone. But growth doesn't happen in isolation. It happens under pressure. That's why you can't rely on the emotional purity of midnight. It's clean, but it's not real. Let's break it down even deeper. Motivation is emotion. Discipline is identity. At night, you're emotional, tired, reflective, vulnerable. You see things through the lens of meaning. That's good for awareness, but terrible for action. The morning requires identity habits, rituals, muscle memory. That's why people like Kobe Bryant, Jocko Willink, or David Goggins seem superhuman. They're not running on motivation. They've just rehearsed their identity so many times that they don't negotiate with feelings. For them, the question isn't, do I feel ready? It's, who am I? Most men don't ask that question. We wake up looking for energy instead of certainty. We scroll, we delay, we promise to start once we feel right. But feeling right never comes because it's not supposed to. Discipline isn't supposed to feel like passion, it's supposed to feel like consistency. If you rely on emotion to act, you'll only act when you're comfortable. And comfort is exactly what keeps you weak. Here's a truth most people won't tell you. Motivation is not the engine, it's the spark. The engine is your system. If you don't build a system that catches that spark every morning, it just dies in the air. Think about the last time you stuck with something, really stuck with it. It probably wasn't because you were hyped every day. It was because you had structure, deadlines, accountability, repetition. That's how the human brain works. Emotion starts the fire, habit keeps it burning. You can't trust your feelings. You have to trust your rituals. That's why the military drills soldiers the same way every morning. It's not about the push-ups. It's about programming the identity. You wake up, you move, you obey the structure. The structure saves you from the chaos of thought. The men who win in life don't wake up motivated, they wake up trained. Their body and mind already know the script. They've turned discipline into instinct. So when you ask, why do I feel motivated at night but dead in the morning? The real answer is this: your night self dreams, your day self doubts. And unless those two meet through consistent ritual, they'll always be strangers. Here's the fix: stop trying to wake up motivated. Instead, wake up committed. Commitment doesn't need fireworks, it just needs truth. It's not about feeling unstoppable. It's about refusing to stop. You won't always feel ready, but you can always feel responsible. That's the shift from emotion to embodiment, from fantasy to proof, from the man who talks in the dark to the one who executes in daylight. And once you understand that, the whole pattern starts to change. You stop chasing energy and start building rhythm. You stop asking for signs and start giving commands. Motivation is a visitor. Discipline is your house. And if you keep waiting for motivation to return, you'll die renting a life that was supposed to be yours. Every night you feed yourself the same fantasy. Tomorrow I'll start. You scroll through another motivational clip, listen to a voice talking about discipline, and for a brief moment, you feel alive again. That shot of inspiration hits harder than caffeine. You picture yourself in motion, the new routine, the new body, the new life, and the image feels so convincing that you actually relax. The mind whispers, "You're on your way." Except you're not. You just mistook thinking for doing. Charles Bukowski once said, "You begin saving the world by saving one man at a time. Everything else is grandiose romanticism or politics." He was talking about himself. A man who wrote about freedom but spent years chained to a post office job he despised. He dreamed like a lion but lived like a clerk. Night after night, he wrote about rebellion, pain, purpose, yet the next morning, he clocked in again. He wasn't lazy. He was trapped in the same cycle that captures millions of us. Emotional release without physical risk. The loop of mental masturbation. It feels like growth. It's not. It's just well-packaged avoidance. When you watch someone else talk about self-improvement, your brain experiences a proxy victory. You feel the same rush as if you accomplished something. Your body releases dopamine, and the illusion of progress replaces the discomfort of actually starting. The more you watch, the more you believe awareness equals transformation. But awareness is cheap. Execution costs something. Here's what makes it dangerous. It feels noble. You tell yourself, "At least I'm thinking deeply. At least I'm planning." But thinking deeply without acting is like sharpening a blade you never use. Over time, you start worshiping the blade itself. You admire how sharp it could be. But a sword that never leaves its sheath rusts in its own potential. Bukowski wasn't wrong for writing at night. He just never built a bridge between his words and his world. That's the line most men never cross. We fall in love with the version of ourselves who reflects, not the one who risks. Let's be honest, reflecting feels smart. It gives you a sense of superiority over those who are simply grinding. You think, "They're mechanical. I'm intentional." But that's ego hiding behind intellect. Discipline without awareness is blind, yes, but awareness without discipline is impotence. Modern culture feeds this. Every platform rewards clever takes, not consistent results. You can sound wise online and be a coward offline. You can tweet about focus while scrolling between distractions. You can call yourself self-aware and still be emotionally bankrupt. Here's the truth. Men who constantly analyze their habits but never build new ones are not evolving. They're procrastinating intellectually. They've replaced effort with explanation. And I get it, the world today makes it easy. You can consume 10 videos about morning routines without ever having one. You can drown in advice until you forget what silence feels like, but somewhere in that noise, the body becomes irrelevant. You start living only in your head. That's the danger of being too aware. You overthink yourself into paralysis. The night version of you is the perfect storm for this. You're tired, but restless. Your brain is half dreaming, half awake. You crave meaning. So you feed yourself these beautiful lies: tomorrow I'll be ruthless. Tomorrow I'll wake up early. Tomorrow I'll be him. But tomorrow never gets the message. If you filmed yourself in that moment staring at your screen, nodding along to someone else's fire, you'd see what's really happening. You're not building a better man. You're soothing the one who failed today. You're trying to escape guilt through fantasy. Here's what people don't tell you about guilt. It's not the enemy. It's fuel. The reason guilt feels heavy is because it's potential energy trapped in regret. When you channel it into motion, it becomes discipline. When you sit with it too long, it turns into shame. Shame eats your drive from the inside out. Bukowski once wrote, "We are here to laugh at the odds and live our lives so well that death will tremble to take us." Beautiful line, but it came from a man who almost never did. He said it, but he didn't live it. That's most of us. We speak like philosophers, act like spectators. Every night, millions of men replay the same ritual. Open a podcast, open a beer, open a note app full of plans. It feels productive, but that's the trap. Your brain checks the A-growth box and goes to sleep satisfied. You wake up the next day still the same man, only now you've convinced yourself you're not. If you want to escape this loop, you need friction, real friction. Something that makes the brain and body meet. Write fewer notes, take more steps. Read fewer how to focus guides, delete the distractions instead. Stop perfecting the system and start testing it. Action has gravity, thinking has air. The longer you stay in your head, the lighter and less grounded your life becomes. That's why nights feel endless and mornings feel heavy. Your body's begging you to match the mental weight with motion. You can't think your way into a new life. You have to move your way into one. Because the truth is this: no one remembers thinkers who never built anything. The man who only plans dies with perfect ideas and unfinished days. And the man who acts even clumsily outlives every perfect plan that never left the page. You can feel it coming. That spark right before sleep. The mind starts whispering again. The future looks clear, clean, within reach. You almost believe that this time it'll stick. But belief without practice is just imagination. Every man who wants to evolve has to decide if he'll keep worshiping the fantasy of potential or learn to live inside the boredom of proof. Here's the thing. Fire is easy. Containment is art. Anyone can get inspired for a night. Only a few can translate that heat into a steady burn that lasts through cold mornings, low moods, and quiet disappointments. That's where the real masculine edge lives, not in how loud your dreams are, but in how quietly you repeat what matters when no one is watching. Think about how Kobe Bryant used that fire. His late nights weren't for fantasies, they were for reps. The work didn't excite him anymore. It defined him. He turned obsession into routine until the extraordinary became ordinary. That's what most people misunderstand about mastery. It isn't passion, it's rhythm. Passion burns hot and dies young. Rhythm keeps burning long after the excitement fades. Steve Jobs understood the same thing. He was obsessive about design and detail, but his real genius was his ability to ship, to release, to finish. The world remembers him not for the ideas in his head, but for the machines in people's hands. His discipline made his imagination real. That's the translation every man needs from thought to thing. The men who change their lives don't have more motivation. They have fewer interruptions between thought and action. They shrink that gap until thinking and doing become the same motion. That's the difference between fire and power. Fire flashes, power flows. So how do you get there? It starts small, painfully small. The mind wants a revolution. The body needs a rhythm. You can't transform your life in a night, but you can change the first 10 minutes of your morning. That's where momentum hides. One push-up, one cold shower, one task done before checking your phone. That's how the night's promise meets daylight proof. Here is what happens when you keep that rhythm for a few weeks. The brain begins to trust you. Every time you do what you said you would, even in a small way, your identity updates. You stop seeing yourself as a liar. You start feeling congruent. The guilt fades because you're keeping your word. That's masculine peace, the alignment between thought and behavior. It's not loud or flashy. It's quiet authority. The fire at midnight shows you potential. Morning routine proves integrity. You need both. There's another truth that men rarely talk about. You will lose the spark sometimes. You'll wake up drained, unmotivated, numb. That's normal. You're not broken. You're human. The problem isn't losing the spark, it's having nothing to fall back on when you do. That's why discipline exists. Discipline is what holds the line when the flame dies. Think of a blacksmith's forge. The fire alone doesn't shape metal, the rhythm of the hammer does. Strike after strike, day after day. The repetition creates strength. The heat only makes it possible. That's what your days should feel like, not a chase for constant intensity, but a steady hammering at your own potential. When you turn night fire into day power, something strange happens. You stop craving motivation. You stop chasing those dopamine surges from motivational clips or podcasts. You start craving completion instead. That's maturity. That's when you finally understand that emotion is a guest and commitment is your home. So tonight, when that familiar wave of inspiration hits, don't waste it on grand declarations. Use it to set a trap for your weaker self. Write one thing you'll do in the morning, something visible, physical, undeniable. Put the shoes by the door, fill the water bottle, write the first sentence. Make it easy to start and hard to avoid. Then, when you wake up, don't think. Move. Don't negotiate. Execute. The mind will protest. Ignore it. It's just the echo of your old identity dying. Each time you act against hesitation, you're training your nervous system to obey truth over comfort. And that's the real victory. Not achieving something once, but becoming someone who no longer betrays himself daily. Steve Jobs said it best. Real artists ship. Kobe lived it best. Rest at the end, not in the middle. That's the masculine code hidden inside this whole lesson to finish what you start, even when the mood is gone. To show up not because it feels good, but because it's right. When men learn that rhythm, they stop chasing purpose. They start living it. So next time you feel unstoppable at night, remember that's not a signal to dream bigger. It's a reminder to prepare better. The version of you that burns at 1 a.m. is only useful if the 7 a.m. version can carry the torch. Every night gives you a vision. Every morning tests if you deserve it. Now ask yourself, which version of you will win? The one who dreams in silence, or the one who builds in daylight? The gym is empty again. The same clock reads 4 a.m. But this time it's not Kobe. It's you. There's no camera, no crowd, just your breath echoing in the dark. You take the shot, miss, take it again. And somewhere between exhaustion and silence, something clicks. You realize it's not about motivation anymore. It's about keeping the promise you made when no one was watching. That's when the shift happens. The night no longer feels like fantasy. The morning no longer feels like punishment. They've become the same battlefield and you finally showed up to both. That's how men are built. Not by the fire that burns for a night, but by the flame that survives every morning. What did this awaken in you? Share it below. Your story might help another man light his own fire. And if this hits something real, subscribe. Because this is just the beginning of how strong men are made.